And I am part of the Alliance for Truth and Justice. We have put together the events that we will celebrate tonight and then tomorrow morning with the dedication of the marker to the memory of Arthur Henry. This is the church that belongs to this man right here, and he is going to speak to you. This is Nate Askew. He is the chair of the deacons, and he's going to welcome you here.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right. If you look at the agenda, it says, welcome, Pastor Derek A. Williams. I want you all to remember this. He's the older of the two of us. I have a little more hair than he has, and I'm retaining my gray in my hair. So make sure if you do see him, you let him know that we shared that tidbit back from Shiloh Baptist Church. Again, we want to welcome you all. As we were made aware that we would be supporting or hosting this event tonight, the name in and of itself, Alliance for Truth and Justice, is a representation of what Shiloh is all about. We are an alliance because we are God's people. We stand for truth because we stand on the Word of God. And if you stand on the Word of God, His justice will be done. So we stand in solidarity with you all. And we appreciate the fact that we recognize we're going to get an opportunity to learn some things about this community that we may not have known. So we're anxiously awaiting to hear some of the stories about what happened back in 1925 when Reverend T.C. Collier was the pastor for this church. I'm here with a couple others of my church servants, and Dr. Rick Harris is in the back row, if you want to stand. He's one of the directors here. And Kevin Ballinger is the chair of trustees here. So in that regard, if there are anything that you need from us during the course of the evening, any one of us will be able to assist and provide guidance in that direction. But having said that, we welcome you, and God bless everyone.
Thank you, Deacon Askew. Geraldine Thompson serves the people of Florida as the senator from the 15th District. She previously served 3 terms in the Florida House of Representatives and is currently the curator of the Wells-Built Museum, where the marker commemorating Arthur Henry will be dedicated tomorrow morning. She has been a gracious host for the ATJ, and it is my great pleasure to introduce her to you, Senator Thompson.
Good evening. I am delighted to have the opportunity to welcome you to the Paramore community. I am privileged to serve this community as a member of the Florida Senate, including Winter Garden and Ocoee and Pine Hills, the heart of Orlando, which is here, all the way out to the historic town of Eatonville. So in my capacity as the senator who represents this district, I want to say welcome. Tonight, I'd like to introduce you to another passion of mine, which is the Wells-Built Museum of African American History and Culture. To introduce you to one person who made a critical difference, Dr. William Monroe Wells, who arrived in Orlando in 1917. And he was one of only 2 African Americans in this community, and who helped to shape this area as a place where we all want to live, work, and play. So we have a video that will introduce you to the legacy of Dr. Wells, and so I invite your attention to the screens, and again, welcome. Thank you. That's what I do in my spare time. Some of you know in the legislature, I push back against a lot of what we see happening, particularly related to the history of African American people and our contributions. Because African American history is American history. And so we will be at the Wells Field tomorrow, unveiling a marker which honors the life of Arthur Henry. And people ask me, why is that important? Well, you may remember, and since we're in a church sanctuary, you may remember a passage of the Bible that talks about a people leaving bondage, going to freedom. And they came to a body of water that appeared to be impassable. But suddenly the water parted and they were able to cross on dry land. But they were told to take up stones as they crossed, and told that on the other side they should use the stones to create a memorial, a marker. So we're not supposed to forget. And in that same passage, we're told that the children who crossed the Jordan were told they should remember, and when their children, their descendants, asked years later, what mean ye by these stones, they could tell the story. And so we're going to tell the story tomorrow of the courage of Arthur Henry, of the injustice of what happened to him, and we invite all of you from 10 to noon tomorrow at the Wells Field Museum of African American History and Culture. Again, welcome.
Beleda Fluellen was one of the founding members of the Alliance for Truth and Justice. She is an author, poet, storyteller, curator, documentary producer, and social justice advocate. Her books include Poetically Just Us, Yours Truly, For the Children, The History of Jack and Jill of America, Incorporated, and African Americans of Sanford. Beleda is an honorary member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, Incorporated. But most importantly, Beleda is my friend, and so I'm pleased to introduce Beleda Fluellen.
The Alliance for Truth and Justice was founded in 2015. It is an affiliate of the Equal Justice Institute, founded by Brian Stevenson out of Montgomery, Alabama. The Alliance for Truth and Justice mission is to facilitate a new era of race relations from the ground up through research, educational forums, exhibits, historical markers, and commemorative soil collections. We believe that when we own and share the truth of our history of racial injustice, our community will recognize, remember, and repair the harm for generations to come. We would like to thank the following organizations who helped to make this program possible. The Association for the Study of African American Life and History, showing my age. Bridging the Color Divide, the City of Orlando, Family Parks and Recreation, the Equal Justice Initiative, I See Images, the Orlando Times, the Peace and Justice Institute, the Powell Artists, Riches at the University of Central Florida, and our host, Shiloh Baptist Church and the Wells Field Museum. Telling our story is the reason that Carter G. Woodson founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History in 1915. He wanted to ensure that the history of the Negro in the diaspora is preserved. Today, we recognize the founding of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and our most honored storyteller, Dr. Carter And to aid us in that recognition is the president of the Central Florida Dorothy Turner Johnson branch of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, Mr. Manuel Jones.
Thank you, Belinda. To everyone here, the Henry family, to everyone here. Thank you so much. It's indeed an honor to be here tonight, and I'm just going to share a couple of things about Dr. Wilson. If you don't know who Dr. Wilson is, Dr. Wilson is the founder of Black History Month, founded in 1915, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And during that time, history was not being represented accurately. The American Society, Historical Society, was not presenting accurate history. So Dr. Wilson says he'll take this into his own hands. And what Dr. Wilson did was this. Dr. Wilson was a single man. And they said that Dr. Wilson work was his marriage, or marriage was his work, however you want to put it, you know. So he never married, and there are several stories I've read that, you know, the ladies would joke with Dr. Wilson, but Dr. Wilson said, I got work to do. So, you know, he never got involved, but I'll just go through and give a brief timeline of Dr. Wilson, some of his accomplishments, and at the end I'll just have a question for you. But Dr. Wilson was born in 1875 in Virginia, and his mother taught him to read and write, but he didn't enter high school until he was 20 years old. And after he entered high school at the age of 20, he went on to become, to get an undergraduate degree at Berea University in Kentucky. From there, he went to the University of Chicago, and from there, he went to Harvard University. Dr. Wilson was the second African American to receive a doctorate degree from Harvard University. The first African American was W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois went on to found the NAACP in 1909, and Dr. Wilson, as stated in 1915, started the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. So from there, Dr. Wilson just kept going forward. We can fast forward to 1926 when he founded Black History Week, and that was Black History Week was a part of it was changed. The name was changed to Black History Week in 1926, and it was a deviation from the Omega Psi Phi fraternity with a program that they had called Black History Archives and History Week. But Dr. Wilson went on to name that Black History Week. In 1976, Lyndon Baines Johnson decreed that Black History Week would become Black History Month in 1976. So from there, we now have what is currently Black History Month. And a couple other things here. One of Dr. Wilson, in his premise to go through and make sure that the history was accurate, he created several journals. One was called the Association Publisher. The Associated Publisher was to create books. It was to publish books by little authors so that they could get their books out and that their books could be published. That publishing company still exists today, and it's under the auspices of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. So it's still going today. The other thing that happened, Mary Bethune was mentioned earlier, and Mary Bethune was the president of ASALH. She was the president from 1936 to 1952. She was the first female president and the longest serving president. Now, Dr. Wilson died in 1950, so Mary Bethune was still president after he died. She was the longest tenured president during that time. And the other publications, the Negro History Bulletin, Mary Bethune, she came up with this idea so that books and teachers would have journals to actually use in their classroom. So that was the Negro History Bulletin. Dr. Wilson went on, his contemporaries during that time were Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, and he was definitely in the fight for justice and equality, and definitely to get Black history known and to get accurate Black history. So after his death in 1950, some of the accomplishments and some of the things that he was honored for, in 1966, one of his books, The Negro in Our History, had sold over 90,000 copies. As I stated earlier, in 1976, Black History Week became Black History Month, the Negro History Week back during that time. In 1984, U.S. Postal Service honored Dr. Wilson with the 20-cent stamp. Library of Congress has over 5,000 items for Dr. Wilson. Dr. Wilson had a memorial dedicated in his hometown of Huntington, West Virginia. At Berea University, they also have the Dr. Wilson Interracial College, or interracial college there. So that's another thing that's happening. But Dr. Wilson, Dr. Wilson was a person that, he was a convicted man, and he was on a mission. His mission was to make sure that Black history was accurate and that it was published and that the narrative was correct. So finally, I would say that Dr. Wilson believed in self-reliance and radical respect. If Dr. Wilson was alive today and would hear some of the things that were happening today based on the things that are happening in this country, you're talking back during, just say 1950 when he died, and 1933 when he published his one of his most recognized books, The Miseducation of the Negro. Totally. I mean, to understand what he would tell us today would be this. He would tell us that we have to support Black history. Black history is American history. He would tell us to support his organization, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. That the mission of the Association for the mission of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History is to promote Black history, to make sure that Black history is accurate. And finally, I would say thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you.
Each year, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History chooses a theme that is the theme for the year. Last year was resistance. This year, the theme is art. And because the theme is art, and I'm an artist, I'm going to share one of my poems. And the poem that I'm about to share, the artist, Trent Domingo, a member of the Alliance for Truth and Justice, did an interpretation of this poem that I wrote in 1994. And that is his interpretation of the poem I call Inspired by a Negro Spiritual. I love to tell the story. I love to tell the story. Will be my theme in glory. To tell the age-old story of a people I do love. Once told by Freedom's Journal, told in the Old North Star, the story of a people and just how great they are. The bebop, the hip-hop, the foolish, the wise, tell the real story. No more lies. I love to tell the story. I must get past the rage and simply tell the story of this new evolving age. The current voice, or so they say, of all our friends along the way. The noises of the native sons, the plea for freedom, the long, hard run. We beat the story drums. We talk the talk of ages. We bring folk the news, broadcast, allow others to take a walk in our shoes. The task is not always nice. We tell the story. We're breaking ice. Very careful about expressing our feelings. Always aware of the eye and the ceiling. We make friends along the way, but we talk that talk. There are things we must say. I love to tell the story. Will be my theme in glory. To tell the age-old story of a people I do love. There is a simple test that separates my people from the rest. My people love. Did you pass? And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Rose Smith. Dr. Smith is an international speaker, author, and former business professor who has pivoted to pastor. She does a humble servant. She's dubbed a humble servant leader. She has been featured in the Washington Post, New York Times, USA Today, on MTV, ESPN, and a plethora of radio shows. Dr. Rose' happiness is derived from serving God, spending time with her husband and children, bonus children, and helping abused children and the elderly population in need. Her personal mission is to be a beacon to everyone she encounters. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rose Smith.
Thank you so much, Rolanda. I am so honored to be here today, not just because I'm with my loving family, but the next person that I'm going to introduce is such a special person to me. Deborah Watts is known around the world as an international speaker as well. She's an entrepreneur. She's the best-selling author of 101 Ways to Know You're Black in America, corporate America. I have known Deborah for about 23 years, not just as a friend, but she is truly a mentor. I have watched her grow so many women in business and in life, and she has instilled true justice, social justice, in so many ways. Deborah has been featured in BET, Jack magazine, a plethora of TV shows, magazines, and if I were to tell you everything that I know about what she's done since I've known her, we'd be here all day. But what I will say is the most important aspect of her life is honoring and carrying the torch of her cousin, Emmett Till, both of her cousins, and Mamie Brown, or Mamie Lowell Till. And it is just such an honor to know that every single day of her life for the last 25 years that she has stepped in that ring to keep their legacy alive with the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce my beautiful friend, Deborah Watts.
First, giving honor to God, who is the head of my life, and probably most of us that are sitting in this room today. Giving honor is something that should be a privilege for most of us. But standing here today is such a humbling experience for me, and an honor as well, because I am among individuals First, I'd like to say hello to the Kendry family. And so I just think this is just beautiful. And also to the person that invited me here today, Dr. Henry. I believe this is Dr. Henry we never met. And then also to my wonderful friend, spiritual partner. We both mentor each other, because that's how it works in real life. Dr. Shiloh. And then others that I know from years ago, the late Phil. And I just want to also say, allies are also in this room as well, and we need all of them. I do want to just share just a brief, this is such a wonderful opportunity, and I could talk for a long time, so you'll have to put the timer on me. Because I'll tell you, whenever you have an opportunity to represent your family, which is what you're doing today, I'll tell you, there's something that flows through you. And as I stand here today, I am standing because I am the daughter of Maddie, who birthed me, who's the daughter and who raised me of Doris, whose mother and the daughter of Josephine, who was the daughter of Maddie, and who was the daughter of Elizabeth, who was born in 1863 in Hazelhurst, Mississippi. Standing on their shoulders and recognizing that they had to bring forth the plans and the strategies of other women, particularly those women in our history who had to cross the Middle Passage, bringing their plans and their strategies and, about how to organize and how to remember. Standing on your shoulders is an honor. And you all are here today doing that very same thing. As we walk through those paths, it's a huge responsibility, but it is one that we're prepared for because they did it. And if they could do it back then and bring us through, which is what they're doing today, we can do it as well. So honoring all of those women like Sojourner Truth, like Harriet Tubman, like Rosa Parks, like Mamie Mobley, and those men in our family as well that laid a groundwork for us and a blueprint for us. I'd also like to acknowledge our Native American brothers and sisters, that indigenous population whose land we stand on. We were brought here to toil and labor in that land, but we need to recognize their contributions as well. Walking in the footprints of those, we've learned so many things, and as we step forward and standing on those shoulders, I just bring you greetings from the family of Emmett Till. Emmett's great-grandfather and my great-grandfather were brothers, Joe and George Smith. I just, a couple of days ago, witnessed my grandson, who did a history project in Florida, in a grade school in Pensacola. And he did his project on Emmett, from tragedy to triumph. He sees the vision. He sees the laboring, the toiling that our ancestors have done. And I think he's listened to a few stories that I've told, right? That young man, in his singular voice and in his hard work, all by himself, without having a group, because usually those projects have group, right? Have other people participate. Well, he won first place. He was so proud of himself. Thank you. And that is the kind of legacy that we need to all leave for others. So I'm just proud today that he was able to take that step and to be recognized today for his contributions and for the contributions of others that have gone before us. But I'll tell you, we're in a club that no one wants to belong to, right? We can identify those lynching victims. We can identify those, even the through line that goes before Emmett, Arthur Henry, including Emmett, and even after Emmett. There's that through line that is something that runs through us and our history, and it is indeed American history. It is American history. And so, in recognizing the 68 years that Emmett was murdered and lynched in 1955, and why we're standing here today, we know that there's so much more work to do, so much more work that needs to be done to make sure that the past is not repeated, that the ugly parts of the past is not repeated. What Mamie Mobley did in 1955 was to invite everyone to bear witness to the ugliness of history, of racism, our ugly parts of our history, and also to white supremacy and racism and hatred. Do we have some similar things happening today? That's an issue for us. So what is the issue here? Why are we repeating the past? And I believe we repeat the past because we're not telling our stories. We're not sitting at the feet of our grandparents, those elders in our community. We're not sharing those stories because some of us have an issue around shame, hurt, and trauma. So, fast forward here, 47 years that Mamie Mobley fought for justice for her son. I stand here today because
Are they on this side?
in 2003, we decided as a family to start the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation. And it's family members who are pushing this huge boulder up a huge hill. But I'll tell you, it has been part of our passion. It's been part of the power because we are sharing identifying the power of history and trying to turn our tragedy into triumph. So with that open casket funeral that woke up America to the hatred and racism, to the creation of the Civil Rights Division within the Department of Justice, to the funeral being seen by thousands at Robert's Temple Church of God in Christ, to the forming of the Emmett Till Players, which his mother did, who turned her tragedy into triumph by pouring into the lives of young people, to the 2003 Unsolved Civil Rights Crimes Act, and that was a bill that was to identify victims, cold case victims, and I'll tell you, there's about 165 of them right now, but that's a bill that we worked on to make sure that the federal government, along with state and local governments, have the kind of support and services that can look at those unsolved crimes and hopefully achieve justice. To the Emmett Till Victims Recovery Program, which we just got passed in Minnesota, which is a blueprint for other states. It provides for services such as memorials to generational trauma, historical trauma, for families of victims. So it involves those victims of the past and those current victims. So we are right now in the, I would say, the epicenter of hatred and police violence in Minnesota with George Floyd, with Philando Castile, with Amir Locke and others, and those people are in this same club that we're in. And then most recently, the National Park Service identified 3 locations which are part of the memorial and why we need to continue sharing our stories and memorializing them, as we are going to be doing tomorrow. National Park Service named Robert's Temple Church of God in Christ, along with the area where Emmett's body was recovered, the Tallahatchie River, along with a courthouse, which actually understand the connection and the intersectionality of how and why we're standing here today. So with the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation, which is an organization that I said that I started in 2005, the mission is to preserve the memory and the legacy of Emmett Till and his mother, Mary Till Mobley. We've started something called the Emmett Till Institute for Leadership and Learning. We're creating this legacy of hope. We're building an important bridge from the past to the present and the future. And we're also preserving the past and inspiring the future by bringing Emmett's place in history together. And that's why I stand here today, because there is that connection. And so I'm just honored to make that connection with you, because I believe we all still have work to do. We need to rile up our allies, move forward, affect change. And so I'm not trying to lay a lot of to-dos on this family, but let me just say this, that there are probably others in your community that are looking at you and looking at your example of what you're doing. And as you have gathered here today in great numbers, this is admirable, because most families, if you remember, a lot of our elders didn't want to talk about the hate and the pain and the shame. So as you confront and engage with your young people over the holidays, I encourage you to share your stories, document them. And one of the main issues that I think our family has, and King family and others, is owning our story. So you have an opportunity to own this story from this day forward about Arthur Henry and other heroes and sheroes within your family. I want to leave you with a quote by Mary Till Mobley, who was my shero. And one thing that she wanted to leave folks with, and her courage was something that was, I know, spiritually led. And the Church of God in Christ, which is a part of our family's history, the things that she was able to do to rise above, you have to understand where that spirit comes from. But she did say, it is not that I dwell on the past, but the past shapes the way we are in the present, and the way we will become what we are destined to become. It is only because I have finally understood the past, accepted it, embraced it, that I can fully live in the moment. And hardly a moment goes by when I don't think about Emmett and the lessons a son can teach another. So we have lessons, we have American history, we have an opportunity to turn our tragedy into triumph. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
I would just like to take a moment to introduce the audience and specifically the Henry family to the members of the Alliance and Truth and Justice, so you will know the people who have worked hard to bring this story forward. With the members of the Alliance for Truth and Justice, please stand so you can see who they are. And you were so kind to stand that I want you to make sure that before you leave, we get a group picture of you. So please don't leave until we report the history of this day and your presence in it. History is often overlooked, sometimes kicked aside, buried in our hearts, our minds, never to confide. Then history has no purpose. And like an old tall shoe, it's a very little value to leave or to keep. But today, we are here to commemorate, to place in indelible ink the story of Arthur Henry. lynched on Thanksgiving Day, 1925. Gone, but not forgotten, thanks to the efforts of Harry Covington, the Alliance for Truth and Justice, and the Equal Justice Initiative. My people, my people. You may see them now and then. You won't recognize them by the color of their skin, the language they speak, the food they eat, the way they live. None of the above. You will know my people by their love. My people. My people. Love. It is my pleasure to introduce the man who, under the auspices of the Equal Justice Institute and the Alliance for Truth and Justice, has dedicated the last 5 years to researching the Arthur Henry story. Harry Covington is a founding member of the Alliance for Truth and Justice, a college professor, an attorney, an Episcopal priest, a person well equipped to research the facts of what happened Thanksgiving Day, 1925, that resulted in the lynching of Arthur Henry. In his research, he considers the legal, the ethical, and the moral issues that led to the death of Arthur Henry. The title, Man of the Hour, certainly belongs to Harry Covington, for it is his dedication and commitment to the Arthur Henry story that has brought us to this historic moment. My people love. And Harry, you are most definitely my people.
Thank you so much. As a part of my research into this story, I discovered that while Arthur Henry died without descendants, he left behind a vibrant extended family. Through the Family Search online site, I was contacted by Dr. Michael Henry. He is the Chief Human Resources Officer for the Little Rock, Arkansas School District. Dr. Henry created 2 Zoom calls with 40 of Arthur Henry's cousins, in which I related the story of Arthur Henry's lynching. None of the family members had ever been told this story. It's important to identify the context in which the lives of the extended Henry family were shaped, coming from a county marked by racial terrorism. The desire for lives unencumbered by this ever-present threat of bodily harm and the degradation that life in a racist terrorist culture ensured would lead the Henry family to depart from Columbia County to seek their fortunes elsewhere. Arthur was but one of the many Henry family members to make that journey in search of brighter horizons. Sadly, his journey would be cut short by a lynching here in Orange County, where he had come seeking opportunity and freedom from the oppression of a racist terrorist culture. We are here this week to remember him. But his story would prove to be an exception among his kinsmen and kinswomen. Many would move to places far to the north in the Great Migration. Others would migrate to Florida's East Coast. And among those in the Henry family diaspora, the current generation of descendants would produce an amazing record of accomplishments. But the starting place in these stories was an ancestral home in Columbia County, where 20 lynchings would occur in the period from post-Civil War Reconstruction. These included the lynching of 7 black men in the years surrounding Arthur Henry's move to Orlando, where sadly he would meet the same fate at the hand of racist terrorists here. Columbia County was also the site of an active Lost Cause movement, which would erect monuments to Confederate soldiers, both at the Olustee battlefield, as well as at the Courthouse Square in Lake City. There were many reasons that Columbia County of the 1920s was a place from which black people would choose to depart. Now, that was 100 years ago. Some things have changed, some remain the same. While the past informs the present, it does not define the future. We now ask to hear from you as the family of Arthur Henry. I would like you to identify yourself, how you are related to Arthur, where you live, and whatever else about yourself you wish our audience to know. Your response should include a brief statement as to how your family history has shaped your life. And I would like you to try to hold your comments to 4 to 5 minutes per person. And Dr. Henry will call on the family members since he knows them. And he will let you know when your time has expired. So I now am happy to recognize Dr. Michael Henry.
We're in the church. Can somebody say praise the Lord? Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. I am Dr. Michael Henry, and I serve as Chief Human Resource Officer of the Little Rock School District. And I'll tell you what this side of the church says about me. They say I'm a family historian. However, but there were some historians that came before me. Gladys Dolores Jones Foster, along with Aaron Lincoln Matthews, and so many others that deposited a lot into me. First, I'd like to say thank you. Let's give Reverend Dr. Harry Coverson another round. He has been embedded in this research for the past 5 years and really trying to find the family of Arthur Henry. And when I tell you all, this side of the church knew nothing of this event. I think I heard Deborah Watts. Thank you so much, Dr. Watts. We're so glad that you're here. And I'll circle back around to Dr. Watts in a minute. And I think he went on Family Search. And our cousin Kimberly Henry does a lot of work with Family Search. But I think Family Search, you have to leave contact information. And he got that contact information. And I think he reached out to Kim, but Kim was like, I don't know who this is. So I think for a while she didn't respond. I'm like, I don't know, who is this? And so it lay dormant. And so one day Kim's like, this man is emailing me, you might want to contact him. He's asking me about Arthur Henry. I don't know Arthur Henry. I just do know Michael Henry. And I reached out and we began to connect. And so I'll share a little bit. I gave him a test because when he called, I wanted to ensure that he had the right family. And so I knew Arthur, I knew Cousin Lilla. We're going to hear a lot about Cousin Lilla tonight because we have some folks that are here that's going to talk to you about Cousin Lilla. That was Arthur's baby sister that lived in Jacksonville. And I said, well, Arthur, what is Arthur's father's name? Well, I knew our Arthur. His name was George Henry. And he said, well, according to our records, George Henry would be Arthur's father. I said, okay, check that one off. Well, I knew Arthur's mother was named Mary Henry. I said, well, what was Arthur's mother's name? He said, well, according to my research, Mary Henry was her name. I said, what about his siblings? Texas, cousin Lilla. He said, well, Texas and Lilla. When he said Lilla, that was a slam dunk. And I said, sir, you have the right family. You have the right family. And so in our first Zoom call, so I got folks together, we had a series of Zoom calls, and Dr. Susie was on the first Zoom call, and Rolanda was on the first Zoom call, and others were on the first Zoom call, and that's when we found out, Dr. Rolanda didn't tell you that, she's a part of the family. She failed to mention that part. Yes, she failed to mention that part. Yes, and so we learned of the connection between Deborah Watts and Rolanda. Been knowing each other for 20 years. I said, Rolanda, she has to, whatever we need to do, we need to have Deborah Watts there. And as you can see, give Deborah Watts a round of applause. Because the work that she's done since 1955, and come to find out 30 years before that, in 1925, the day before Arthur was lynched, my daddy turned 6 years old. And when you say that the old patriarch, they did not share this information with us. Now, I'm going to tell y'all, I know Gladys Foster had to know some information about this, but never was it shared. Never was it shared. Because during that time, it's like they were looking at, could I be next? And the like. And so this is the time we need to hear from the family. And so I've already drafted some folks to prime the pump. Those of us that tend to be a little more verbose, and that'll allow some of the others. I asked Aunt Ag, I said, Aunt Ag, you wanna? She's like, get these young people, push these young people. So we're gonna push the young people, then we're gonna bring in the Uncle Ellis's and the Uncle Clarence's and the Uncle Keats and I know Aunt Lala. Good, I understand Aunt Lala. Aunt Lala has given us an edict. She's gonna listen tonight. You look so pretty, Aunt Lala. Mayor Derek LaVon Henry is coming. He is the mayor of Daytona Beach, Florida, and he's going to tell you, he's going to identify himself, he's going to tell you how he's related to Arthur Henry, and he's going to tell you how his family history has shaped his life. After Derek comes, we're going to ask Dr. Joanne Marie Terrell, systematic theologian from Chicago Theological Seminary, and then we're going to ask Charles Leroy Jr. and Felicia Roseberry. They're going to tell you a lot about Cousin Lilla, Mayor Henry.
As has been stated, my name is Derek Henry. I am the son of Daniel Clinton Henry, the oldest living relative of Arthur Henry, the grandson, the son of Donaldson Henry, the first cousin of Arthur Henry, making Daniel the second cousin, me the third cousin, and my children who are present, the fourth cousin of Arthur Henry. How has this shaped my life? I'm still grappling with that. And I think that I will probably grapple with that for the rest of my life. Because being a Henry means a lot to me, because that's my given name that I inherited. And for me, being a Henry has always meant two things. Being a church boy. That's what it's meant first. Covering, a spiritual covering that was given to me by my ancestors. And being a part of an institutional church that was founded by my family. And so that church was founded, and it was, a holy roller church. And so that's my history, and I have tethered myself to that. I'm a mayor, but my wife says everybody thinks you're a preacher. And while I have never accepted the calling to preach, I have never run from the fact that that's my DNA. And so that's what Henry has meant. It's also meant competition. You know, I see my siblings here, and I see my father here, and he rode with me, and all he talked about was coaching. Coaching was competition. Growing up with 5 siblings who were boys, or 4 siblings who were boys, competition. Sports, board games, mental games, history, whatever it was, there was competition. So that's really what being a Henry meant, those 2 things. And then but there's 2 sides to every human. So that's my daddy's side, but my mother's here, and he was married, they were married for a long time. And so both sides, I married myself to both sides. But on the O'Quinn side, my mother's father was killed in 1959 because he was a black man too successful. And just like they burned down Tulsa, burned down Rosewood because you had a whole city of folks who were too successful. And so he was too successful, so when you get a black man in Mississippi, 1959, the most influential person probably in the community, most money, white folks didn't necessarily like that. So they took his life, and she mentioned his case is a part of that cold case history. So that's in my DNA. So when you get that spiritual DNA, and then a grandfather who was trying to register folks to vote and trying to educate folks and trying to liberate folks, those 2 married in my being and in my spirit. My granddaddy and his wife have a picture that looks at me every day, because I also educate children, and I want to make sure that how I treat children, they will be pleased with that. But I never knew, I thought that the Henrys were liberated from the scourge of paying the ultimate cost of being black in America and being successful by losing their life. I thought that was just reserved for the O'Quinn. So how does this affect me now? Now it is problematic. Because the spiritual side of me looks at, I thought I was these sort of 2 people married into one, and then driven to live a certain type of life. One spiritual, competitive, one that was committed to social justice, committed to the uplift of my community. 2 married together. Now I got to go home and reconcile. What was it about my granddaddy who, when I was 6 years old and he was sick and living in our house before he died, and I scurried off to get him water every time he called out of a gold glass that I still remember like it was yesterday. Give me some water. Yes, granddaddy. Among the happiest times of my life. But how do I reconcile the fact that he passed on all of this deep truth? And I know I'm past 4 minutes, but how do I reconcile that he passed on this Bible that had to cover him from the pain of what Arthur experienced? Because that was his covering. But yet, all of the teaching and all of the stories that they have, and they didn't tell him this. So you ask how being a Henry shapes me. And I thought I would conclude with this particular thought, and I don't want to miss it. My final thought is that my history and my future, as complex as they are, I try to make room for everything. All of my past, my dreams, my vision, my offspring. There's room for God. I didn't think that I had room for Arthur's story. But how does the Henry legacy shape me? Just like there's room for love, there's room for me to figure out how to reconcile the hate that did what the hate did to Arthur. And so for you folks, I look forward to taking that journey with you as we together reconcile this part of our history that we didn't want, we didn't ask for. But sometimes in life you get a little bit of those things that you don't want, and you deal with them.
Now that was going 4 minutes, but we needed to hear that, didn't we? Dr. Joanne Marie Terrell. Followed by Charles Leroy and Felicia Roseberry and Dr. Melissa Chester.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Brad Braxton says, where there is no music, the spirit will not come. So I'm going to sing a little bit of a song that I wrote to express something of what I'm feeling about the story that has come to me of late. I've got the blues, I've got the blues, I've got the deep purple womanist consciousness, self-loving superwoman, broken-hearted black woman blues. Deep purple blues. Every day I gotta pray, 'cause I don't wanna be tomorrow's bad news. Got the blues, got the blues. I've got the deep purple womanist consciousness, self-loving superwoman, broken-hearted black woman blues. Deep purple blues. Every day we gotta pray if we don't want to be tomorrow's bad news. Day and night we gotta fight since we don't want to be tomorrow's bad news. I am the Reverend Dr. Joanne Marie Terrell. I am the Kenneth B. Smith Senior Professor of Public Ministry, Associate Professor of Theology, Ethics, and the Arts at Chicago Theological Seminary, and author of Power in the Blood, The Cross in the African American Experience. I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors and on the scholarship of Ralph Ginsberg, who wrote 100 Years of Lynching, and Michael and Judy Ann Newton, all of whom compiled newspaper clippings on racial and religious violence in the United States. My late mentor, Dr. James Hal Cone, wrote The Cross and the Lynching Tree. Arthur Henry was my maternal grandfather, Elder Donaldson Henry's first cousin, which makes me his third cousin, though my mother was not yet born at the time of his demise in 1925. For context, she was born in 1930. I'm struck by how completely unaware I was of Arthur's lynching, since I often spent extended periods of time during summers with my grandfather, and we had a close, loving, and even chatty relationship. We talked a lot about the things we liked and what we didn't like. He liked sauerkraut, which I thought was odd for a black person. Yet he never spoke a word about the awful fate of our cousin. Today, in the spiritual and earthly realms, cousins, brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, fathers and mothers are reuniting. We are experiencing a family reunion. We owe our thanks to Pastor Williams and to the officers and members of Shiloh Baptist Church for their gracious hospitality. We owe the Wells-built museum our thanks for being a site of cultural remembrance. We owe the Alliance for Truth and Justice and Dr. Harry Coverston our profound thanks for the research and for reaching out to us and offering this proof of the fact that Black stories matter because we are persons of consequence. And finally, we owe our author a debt of love for convening us in this time and place. You'll hear from me again tomorrow. Thank you.
Charles Leroy and Felicia Roseberry, brother and sister.
Folks, I'm overwhelmed, to say the least. And I think Dr. Coverson, Watts, and everybody that brought us together. And I've been known to have the gift of gab, but I'm actually speechless. So I'm going to let my younger sister, my only sister, I feel comfortable enough to tell you this. This beautiful young lady was about 3 years younger than me, and I was so proud of her coming up, I didn't want her to get too conceited. So when we were young, I nicknamed her Ugly, in short for Ugg, and it stuck. And her kids, her grandkids, they don't understand it. She says, no, it's endearment by me. This beautiful lady is my one and only beautiful sister, Felicia, and I'm going to let her start, and then I'll chime in.
I just want to mention how we are related. My grandmother, Gladys Foster, Michael mentioned her name. She was first cousin with Arthur and cousin Lil. We knew her as Godmother. That's what we called her. I was young, but my mother used to go by and visit her, and my grandmother, and they would take us. And there was a few times when my mom would leave us, my brother and I there, and she wasn't very sweet, didn't mistreat us to make sure we ate and everything, but she wasn't warm and fuzzy. And again, I'm young, 5, 6, or whatever, but you don't know how somebody is shaped, what they went through to become that person that you think of was very stoic. Knowing this, hearing this, and knowing this story, now it makes sense. Because obviously she knew what happened to her brother. But to keep it in, to probably feeling helpless, that there's no one you can reach out to and make a difference, you take that in and you have to become strong. You have to build up a wall so that you can survive to the next day. She had no children, and so, you know, my mom and my grandmother were like some of the closest ones that I knew of. And she always would give us a hug, but just wasn't very, as I mentioned, warm and fuzzy. I have a whole different perspective on her now. And I wish I could, you know, knowing what I know now, could be that person for her. But I wanted to say one other thing about this and how it's shaped me. One thing I do know, my grandmother, my aunt, her sisters, they were strong people. They were resilient people. I never could say that I saw hate in them for anybody, no race. And when you've been around that kind of environment, why don't you have that? Why don't you have a little bitterness? Well, it passed on to us because we don't have it. And there's a quote that you know, I hope to live by, and I think kind of wraps this up, is it says, model the behavior you wish more people would display. Lead first. So if I don't like hatred or injustice, then I can't have that in my heart. If I want to have people to show love at all times, then I have to start with the love in my heart. So I appreciate what my family left me with, the kind of person and the kind of heart, to have a loving heart. It's about how a person treat you and not the color of their skin.
I'm still speechless. So it's what she said. Everything she said, I agree with. My sister would tell you that I've never, ever been in a situation where I didn't know what to say. But I'm speechless. And the only thing I can really think of, since there's so much love here, and our family can't thank you enough, especially hearing from you as well with regard to it. I couldn't believe it when Michael passed on that you were going to be speaking in our behalf. And I can't thank you enough. Having that spiritual foundation that Derek talked about was certainly passed on as well. There are a couple of scriptures that come to mind, but one in particular. Even if you aren't a believer, it's so powerful that it's something I know my sister can say that we've tried to live by. But again, that was passed on from one Gladys Dolores Jones Foster, who was the daughter of Ethel Henry, and as she mentioned, Lilla, who was the younger sister of Arthur, that we spent so much time and we experienced that love and nurturing. But this, from the time that we've been kids, is what we tried to live by. The famous words by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in John 13th chapter, verses 34 and 35. The context being that he knew he was about to give his life in our behalf. And he said, I'm giving you a new commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also love one another. By this, all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love among yourselves. It's so easy to talk about all the world needs love. But this is quite definitive. It's the love that Christ had. And there cannot be any more powerful display of love than being willing to give your life. And this covers everyone. It goes beyond the local area here in Orlando. It goes beyond Florida. It goes beyond the U.S. It goes beyond this country and continent even. It's this type of love that Jesus was saying that would be so harmonizing for people, despite the color of their skin, despite their social status, financial status. And this is what we tried to live by, and that was passed on to us. And again, you can feel that type of love with all the research that was done and what brought us here today. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And I think I'm speechless. It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Take Charge Tuesday. I have theme days. Make It Happen Monday, Take Charge Tuesday, Winning Wednesday, Thankful Thursday, Fearless Friday, Super Saturday, and So Full, F-U-L-L, Refuel Sunday. So happy Take Charge Tuesday. I am Dr. Melissa Nolan Chester. I am the fourth cousin of Arthur Henry. I am Dr. Joanne Terrell's niece. So her mother was my grandmother, who unfortunately I did not have the privilege of knowing because she passed away when I was 2 months old by a violent crime. And so how does this impact me? I'm going to say, if my family knows me, and they know me, I'm seen as the fiery one, the outspoken, the assertive one. However, I am someone who considers themselves a rose out of concrete. My mother had me at 17. My father was not really in my life. He got into my life later on, and he recently passed away. I turned 50 in October. I buried him 5 days after my birthday. And at his funeral, I found out something about him. I found out that he had actually left where he was from, Ethelsville, Alabama, because he had gotten into an altercation with someone white, and his family was very afraid of his safety, so they sent him to Florida. And so he had 2 siblings that he had never met until I took him back home when I was in my 30s. His baby brother and his baby sister, they had never met him because he was afraid to go home because of what had transpired back when he was 18 years old. And I found that out at his funeral. And so hearing this story about Arthur Henry, it just tells me that who we are as a people are overcomers. We are people who keep going despite. We are people who understand that our circumstances do not determine who we are, where we're going to end up, any of that. I can say that this has impacted me greatly. I have an 11 and 13-year-old, and when I told them what was going on, they were like, well, why are they doing that now? And I was explaining to them that, we have to define ourselves through our history. Many of us do. It's difficult when you don't know who your grandmother is, your great-grandmother. You don't know your history. And so this is just another piece of the puzzle to who I am and why I am. And in closing, I want to say that understanding one's history provides a sense of identity and connection to a rich cultural heritage and helps us recognize the struggles and achievements of our ancestors. The story of individuals like my cousin Arthur Henry serves as a stark reminder and highlights the deep-seated racism and injustice that our people faced during that era. By remembering these painful episodes in history, we honor the memories of those who suffered injustices like Cousin Arthur and ensure that their stories are never forgotten. This knowledge must fuel our commitment to continue the fight against racism and inequality in order to promote a more just and inclusive society. It reminds us that progress has been made, but there is still much work to be done in order to actualize the inherent right of true equality and justice for all.
At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to stand as the oldest living member of the Henry family, Daniel Clinton Henry, comes. He's escorted by his son, Patrick Henry, which is a former Florida House of Representative, representing Daytona, and Uncle Clint is coming at this time. And he's going to tell y'all a little bit about Columbia. This is our oldest family member, and his mind is just as sharp as 5 tacks. And he's a preacher too, so we'll have to pull his coattail.
Good evening. So he was back there telling me, he said, don't nobody know about Columbia County like I do. He was born in 1937. So, Dr. Coverson, when you was talking about Columbia County, he started back telling me stories, and I've heard all the stories, but I've never heard about Arthur. So, Dad, take a few minutes to kind of tell me a little bit what you remember about growing up and being raised.
How's everybody doing? It's great to be here. That's my brother, Dale. Ellis Henry. It's my sister, my first, Lola Henry. And we came up in Columbia County. One of the most racist places you ever want to see. Columbia County was a racist place. But I want you to understand one thing now. They didn't do it all by themselves. What I'm saying by this is that black man had to stand up for himself. When people didn't want to associate with you, I'm gonna tell you, I didn't take a lot from a lot of people. Don't need me telling you all that I took a lot, but I did. I didn't take a lot from white folks. I didn't. But I would have one just as quick as I would anybody else. I can remember time that a white man was standing there and, you know, if you get to and he'd be curled up. If you jump, he'll strike you. You see, a rattlesnake can jump as far as he is long. And I saw this white man just standing there, boy, he was just standing there. He wouldn't move. He was picking berries on our farm. But he wouldn't move. And I was riding my horse and I looked down and there he was just standing there, scared. And I had my rifle. And sitting in my saddle, I shot him dead through the head. The rattlesnake, not the man. Look like y'all give me up. Look like y'all give me a shot at me now. I shot the man. I shot the rattlesnake to save the man. Not the man. And he jumped up just taking me in. And he went all downtown and he told everybody that son of Johnson Henry don't bother. So please don't bother because he's a sharpshooter. He saved my life. But do not bother that man. Because he is a sharpshooter. That I was. You see, I remember coming through the woods and there was moonshine still. They were making moonshine. Man, there was some ugly jokers out there. I'm riding a horse, I said, Lord, I don't know what I'm going to do if these jokers decide they want to shoot me. There's about 6 or 7 of them. But my daddy told me one thing. He did tell me this now. I'm not racist, so I'm not getting on nobody. I'm just letting you know what he told me. He said, son, now I'm going to tell you, you're in a bad town. If anybody shoots you or shoot at you, you better try to get all of them you can get. Because they're going to kill you. That's in Columbus County. They're going to kill you, so you might as well get all you can get. And that's what I had in my mind. But I was able to come on through. They let me through. But that night, the owner of the moonshine still came to my house. And I'm going to tell you this. I went to school with more money in my pocket than anybody around the school. Because the owner come down and he said, I'm going to give you so much money every Friday if you don't tell the sheriff. I said, man, what am I going to tell the sheriff when you giving me money? Wouldn't that look crazy? You give me money every Friday, and every Friday I went to school with more money than the teachers did. Yeah, I had more money than the teachers. Because every Friday he brought me money. But I'm going to tell you one story. Columbus County. The sheriff pulled my uncle over and searched his trunk and he had moonshine in there. And they went to fight, him and the sheriff. They fought all across the woods. I imagine they fought from here to across the street over there. And so finally the sheriff got his gun out and he shot him in the thigh. But he managed to get away. And there come a time when he went to court, and the judge said, did you have a such one to such said, no, I didn't. He said, well, I'm going to tell you, you got to have a testimony. He said, I'm going to dismiss this case. But now I'm going to tell you why he dismissed the case. Because my uncle was selling moonshine for the jury. But he never told nobody that my uncle was selling moonshine for him. But the judge also was what them things is when you write numbers, when you write numbers, he also had people write numbers for him. The judge did. Huh?
A bookie.
Yeah, the judge had people write numbers. Yeah, go read it. So you see, he had no cause to arrest my uncle or put him in jail because I'm messing up my goods. I'm messing up my goods. Columbia County was a terrible place. Believe me, my father was Ella Johnson Henry. He was a great preacher. I'm Ella Clinton Henry, Daniel Clinton Henry. I'm not nothing like my daddy was. But during the time that they stepped on my toes, I could do a little something, but I don't want any of y'all to, but Columbia County have changed. Okay. Everything's a lot. Okay, and it really has been a pleasure meeting y'all and talking with y'all. My son ready for me to sit down.
Y'all know we love our Uncle Clint. Let's give him a round. This is one of our precious treasures. One of our precious treasures. All right, now I think I have exhausted all the people that I drafted. And so, as Uncle Clint goes to his seat, do we have any last calls at all? Because we're going to proceed, and Patrick Henry is coming. And so it's one person we haven't heard from. Uncle Ellis, how you feeling? You want to talk? Awesome is his word. I don't care what you say. He's going to say, I feel awesome. Clean covenant. Oh, can you get the yes? And so at this time, as we close, we have a special presentation that we'd like to present at this time. Uncle Ellis is going to present it. We'd like Reverend Dr. Harry Culbertson to come forth if he would. And so as they come, as we reflect on your research and the time and the energy and the passion relative to this project, I, along with the entire Henry family, would like to give thanks and celebrate you for all you've done in researching, contacting us, and celebrating the life and legacy of Arthur Henry. Indeed, your work in this area has been nothing short of phenomenal. We appreciate and love for your tenacity in validating the life of Arthur Henry and others, as others viciously cut his life short. To be sure, you have left an indelible impression on our lives. Moreover, you have truly made a difference in the lives of the Henry family, and tonight, we salute you, sir. And so at this time, we're going to ask Uncle Ellis to present this gift to you at this time. And we want you to open it up and show it to everybody.
It reads, "Making a Difference, Reverend Dr. Harry Coverston, the Alliance for Truth and Justice, honoring your outstanding tenacity in researching the life of our beloved relative Arthur Henry, the Henry family, December the 6th, 2023.
And for this, we thank you.
And someone has left their device here. I should have kept it there, have all your secrets. Well, let me say, first of all, thank you to the family. That was a wonderful, wonderful gift you've given me. I truly appreciate it. I would like to thank all of you who came tonight. This was very important to me and to this family that you show, and you have been treated to an incredible night. These stories are just wonderful. I would also like to invite you tomorrow morning to come back to the Wells Boat Museum right around the corner here. Our ceremony will begin at 10 o'clock, and we will be dedicating the marker that the Equal Justice Initiative has created for us for remembering Arthur Henry. I've gone through this whole thing with this sort of this motto in the back of my mind: nobody deserves to just disappear into the night. Nobody. Tonight, we're bringing him back. So please come and be with us tomorrow morning. There is free parking. It will be across South Street there. And we'd love to have you all there to dedicate our marker in the morning. Thank you again. The Henry family, if you'd stick around, because we have got a dinner prepared for you across the street over at the Fellowship Hall. So please proceed over there if you would. Thank you.
That was a repair.